In a world where Africans have lost their roots, it has become of vital importance to document our ways. In an effort to reverse the brainwashing of the past, where we were made to believe our ways are demonic, we are pressed to create dignified and respectful platforms to unpack our spiritual ways.
Umoya light, umoya bright, umoya nice. Guys, I think of all the interviews I've ever done, this is the one that I'm most nervous for. I've got a celebrity in the building. I've got somebody we read about in our history books. We've seen on like TV growing up, and like it's so overwhelming. It's so exciting. Advocate Dali Mpofu, what a privilege. I'm so lucky. Thank you so much for agreeing to come.
Thank you, Ntsiki.
To share
Hi,
you.
and the pleasure is mine. Good to be here.
You know, like I said, we've read about you all our lives and we've been growing with you, but we've never actually gotten to know you.
Yeah.
So please, can you start from the beginning? Where you were born, who raised you, the whole story.
Right. Okay. Now, the beginning is literally in a small place called Duncan Village in East London. That's where I was born because my parents worked there. We actually came from maybe less than 100 k's from there, King Williamstown. That's the rural home, my village, which I'm proud of, called Kukwala. But both my parents were laborers. My father worked at a factory that is still the sweet making factory, but he got very sickly. And my mother was a domestic worker. So once he fell sick, it was upon her to then fend for the family. And I'm the youngest of two sisters and me.
Oh.
So, yeah. So in the household, that's why when people talk about respecting women, for me, that's the only thing I know, because I was the youngest person with my mother, my two sisters. There was no option but to respect them. Otherwise, I was going to get a smack.
I actually was going to say that because you do have a connection with women.
Yeah, I do.
So it does make sense now.
Yes, yeah. So, yeah. Now, spoiled brat in a way, I suppose, because the only boy and the youngest, yeah. So from that point of view, it was quite a joyous upbringing until, of course, you start to notice your surroundings and you realize that you're actually living in what I call a glorified shack, because it was like this, 4 walls, and that's it. That's the house. And so it's the kitchen, it's the bedroom, it's where you wash, it's everything. Yeah. Then you start wondering, because you can see other people have 4-roomed houses and so on. Yeah. And then...
so how old are you when you start noticing these things?
Well, this is probably around early 7, 8, actually, yeah. And then there was a phenomenon which at that stage it sounded like something burdensome, but actually was an advantage. So my mother would do it like this. She would, if she had money for that particular year, then she would take me to a school in the township, in Duncan Village.
Okay.
Then the following year, she runs out of money. Then she takes me back to the rural area, and I school there. So my schooling was like this. What we now call grade R would have been in the rural village. And then the next year, I'm in the township. The following year, standard 1 in those days, I'm back in the village. 2 and 3, I'm in town. 4, I'm back in the village, and so on. Now, this was literally, remember then, what that means is actually, it's not so much money. Probably the whole schooling year was 1 rand or 2 rand. But to show the kind of poverty we're talking about. Now, that was a bit annoying at the time, but it actually made me a fuller person, because right now I can relate. I've lived in the village. I know how Yonganding Komo and all that stuff. I know how to plow the fields, but I also know the township life. So it was a great thing, which it was not planned, but it happened there. Anyway, fast forward to let's say around about age 13 or so. Then one uncle of mine was quite a political activist. I think deliberately tried to influence our consciousness and our thinking. And I remember the first book he gave me was Cry the Beloved Country of Alan Paton, which by now is like a liberal thing, but then it was like a political book. I think it might have even been banned there. So I became quite aware of my political surroundings early in life. So by 76, even though I was only 13, in 1976, by June 1976, going for 14 years old, I managed to be part of the people who led a small effort, to be modest about it, because obviously the Soweto uprising was starting to spread across the country. So let's say by July, if it was June in Soweto, by July, August, it was spreading across the country. And in our school, we managed to get people out and so on. It didn't really come to much, but it just showed that the consciousness was there. So I think the most important point was 1977. Now I'm 14, going for 15, and then they killed Steve Biko, and by then I know he is. I had never met him, but because he was from Ginsberg, is maybe 40, 50 k's from where I live. So it was someone I was aware of, and I used to read my mother's leftover newspapers from the white people. So I followed him quite a lot, and his trials. I remember he was appearing in court and so on. I always have this picture of him holding a cigarette. It was still fashionable to hold a cigarette then, holding a cigarette outside court. Yeah, and then they killed him. Yeah, I mean, this really had a profound impact on me, maybe even more than the 1976 moment. And I remember my mother did not allow me to go to the funeral. I was very aggrieved by that. But my elder sister was allowed to go because she was older. And my mother thought I was going to be stampeded there by people or whatever. Anyway, so then I think I can say that was the moment at which I became an activist. Fast forward 1980. By 1980, I'm now a leader of COSAS. COSAS is still new, and I'm in Metric, and I'm a leader of COSAS, leader of the school boycotts of 1980.
Oh, you're in the township.
I'm in the township now. Yes, yeah. No, the later years, the from standard 6, 7, and so on, it was all in the township. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, 1980, then we get involved in quite serious business. Yeah. I get arrested in about August. I think we stopped going to school in June. Get arrested in August for what was called sabotage and arson, burning down schools and all sorts of things like that.
What happened? Please give us the detail, like when you got arrested.
It's that's so juicy. If I ever do a movie, that's the one part that will show up. So this is what happens. I got bent on my face in the process of allegedly
of the alleged arson.
So I'm bent, and so I go home. Remember you have to slip out of the window. So I come back home. And in the morning, I have to justify why I'm bent here. So I go to the primer stove and pretend to be burning from that. And my mother comes and puts, normally the eggs and the oil, black parents here. Anyway, so when the police came a couple of days later to say, no, this guy was burning a school. She says, no way. This guy bent here. I was here when he got bent. And literally, she only had the true story after I came back from she was prepared to go to court to say, look, I'm not saying he didn't ban the school, but he banned here in my house. Yeah. So you can see already the lawyer was already developing to create the evidence. Anyway,
so
yeah, no, what actually happened, worst thing that happened, now we're supposed to be underground because we've done this. Then I go to one of my comrades' house. He was 2 streets far away from me. As I'm there, the police come to arrest him. Because obviously somebody had spoken. Yeah, I ran to a room, get into the blankets and pretend to be sleeping and so on. So they're arresting him and so on. And lo and behold, just as they're about to leave, one policeman says, and now this one sleeping wearing his shoes. I promise you. Then they take off the thing and say, it's Mpofu. We were looking for you. We were going to come to your house anyway. So, I could have had...
So they knew you by name.
Of course, they knew. They had... Yeah, by then I was kind of an activist, or a leader of COSAS. So imagine I could have heard that they arrested this guy, then I would have left. In fact, one of our guys did that. When he heard that we were arrested, he left the country, gone. But anyway, so we got zapped. Cut a long story short.
So they take you. They take
us. And don't just take us. They arrest us. They go and they torture us. And in my case, they say I still have all these bands. They say we're going to take a thing and brush you off. Anyway, quite serious torture. Yeah.
That is hectic. Yeah. You're 18.
17. I'm 17 actually, going on 18. I spent my 18th birthday in that cell, during that arrest. This is August. My birthday is in September, so I'm 17, literally a kid. When you say that, I always say to people, it's what we don't understand, what we put black parents through ourselves during those years. Mm-hmm. Because now I have 4 kids, and every time they are 17, I just look at them and think, if someone came to arrest them, even for 1 hour, I would freak out, let alone 3 months or 6 months, and you don't even know where your kid is at that age.
Oh
and anyway, so our parents went through the most, I think, yeah. But anyway, so by the time I get released for this, then I think I got released in December. In January, I was arrested again. Now, this time they come they find me with ANC literature. And this is the worst thing, because they actually came because somebody had banned a school somewhere. But the lazy police, they come to me because this is the arsonist.
You're the school burner.
Yeah. But I knew nothing about it. But while they were there, they find this ANC literature. So this is the most serious.
So this is when the law had banned.
Oh yeah, you might know the story. There was some guy who was actually spent 5 years because in his mug at work he had inscribed ANC. So that's how anything to do, let alone to have a pamphlet issued by the ANC. That was like highest form of treason. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So they find this thing and they were shocked to that. How did it means you are part of the underground? How do you even have ANC literature? Anyway, I spent another 4 or 5 months in detention. So by the time I got released out of that, I now had to stand trial for the arson and sabotage. So it was too late to go to school. Then I had to find a job. We got acquitted, by the way, in the court case. Yeah, maybe around about June. Now I have to find a job. I found a job. I worked at a factory. People don't know this about me, that I was actually a laborer, wearing overalls and welding cars, Anyway, by the following year, I then decided, no, I must go back to school. I go back to school. I resign unceremoniously from the job and go back to the same school that I was supposed to have bent down there. And finished my matric and then came to Wits, yeah. So that's the rest. When I came here to Joburg, I thought, okay, I'm just going to come here, get my degree and go back home. 30 years later or whatever, I'm still here. So that's me, yeah. And but wherever I was always an activist.
But you're not finished. I mean, then you get to university because this hour is to get to know Dali Mpofu.
That's good. Okay,
yes.
good. You see, I'm conscious of the time. No, that's great. Then, fortunately, at school, I always did very well. Just to illustrate that, even though I had gone away and come back, Bantu education being what it is, when I needed, for me to be here, in fact, I wouldn't even be talking to you now if it wasn't for the fact that when I did my matric, I had a scholarship which needed me to get a average first class, that's what it was called then, which is C or and above aggregate. It's the saddest thing to show you the kind of quality of education is that in my school at that time, the people who sat for matric were 173, the whole shoot. And there was only one person who obtained the first class pass. So the rumor came the previous day that there's only one first class pass. If that one person had not been me, I wouldn't be talking to you now. So it was that close, yeah. Because my scholarship, that was the minimum requirement. So you can imagine I didn't sleep that night because it just had to be me who got that. And I literally woke up and I couldn't even take off my pajamas. I just went straight to the principal's house. And as I came in, he gave me a hug and So that's another poignant moment, yeah. Anyway, so now I've earned the scholarship. I've got to come to Johannesburg by train. And got here and, then registered for an engineering degree at Wits. But a year or so later, I knew that I didn't want to be an engineer. I wanted to be a lawyer. Changed into law. But of course, as I say, by the time I come to university, I'm a veteran of 2 or 3 detentions and all sorts of things. So naturally, I get involved with student organizations. I become the president of the Black Student Society at Wits.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which creates new problems. So then I get arrested here now.
This is in the 80s now?
Yeah, this is in the 80s,
okay.
yeah. I was elected as the president of the Black Student Society in 1985, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
This is the hottest moment in terms of the state of emergency and all that. So I get arrested again in 1985.
Why? What's happening? Because I need to be weren't born.
Oh, we were born, but I'm assuming that you know these things. Yeah, you were very young.
Because you've got a baby face, you think you're one of us.
I know, thanks, yeah. By the way, Moses Kakan is still very aggrieved that you said he's older than me. But,
you know what you're actually avoiding in all of this because I'm sure you were quite a good-looking young guy.
Allegedly.
Yes.
Allegedly, yeah.
So there is. I mean, we do want you to go into.
There's a lot.
Thank you.
No, there's a lot. Yeah, a lot. Yeah. So, for example, to give you some of the juicy parts.
That's what we want. That's why we called you.
Okay, I'll just say that. Yeah, let's just say that by the time I come out of my detention, I'm a father.
Oh,
it turns out, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's another story. Yeah. But yeah, okay.
This is when you're in matric.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so
during the politics.
Yeah.
You were
during
juggling.
the politics, yeah. If you are doing old people's things like politics.
You get into old people things.
Anyway, then at Wits, yeah. 1984, 85. I mean, for us, it was almost natural. You know, I was involved with the Soweto Youth Congress, with the Azanian student organization, which I was part of. And this was not like anything extra. So, you know that you come back from university, you go and do your political meetings, you go. During the weekend, you are busy with comrades in Soweto. It's part of what you do, yeah. So you become part of this. So 85, I got arrested in a strange way, by the way. We're coming back from the funeral of Matthew Goniwe, the Craddock 4.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So we come back, driving back to Johannesburg in a bus. And on the way, literally, PW Botha declares the state of emergency. So they just literally zapped. I think when we were in Vanderbilt Park, the bus was stopped, taken to Protea police station, and they found us there sitting ducks. Yeah, and then they chose 15 of those that they wanted. Yeah, so you're sitting in a bus. There's nothing you can do. They say, yeah, you and you and you and you. The rest can go. So we were detained there.
And by Anaz?
No, of course they know exactly who they're looking for. Yeah. So somebody like Amos Masondo, who's now in the chairman of the NCOP, he was in that bus with us. So we got arrested. We got taken for the first time. I think we were the first group that called the prison Sun City. Eventually, we were then taken to Sun City. And then we were released. 86, there was a new state of emergency. I was arrested again. Solitary confinement, John Foster Square, Sun City, the whole...
Tell us about solitary confinement.
That's one of the worst things you can ever think of. It's, the period, the 1 hour we spend here, with me and you, goes like this. But when you're in solitary confinement, you almost feel every minute of it. A day becomes like you fall asleep and you wake up and you think, oh yeah, maybe it's the evening. No, it turns out you've only been sleeping for half an hour. It's still the morning. So it's real mental torture, yeah. And I always joke that you do get time to get to know yourself, your strengths, because there's no one else you can talk to. The only time you talk to anyone is when you're taken out for interrogation. So it's not like something you look forward to, because that involves torture and all sorts of things, yeah. But there were funny moments, yeah. So I, just as an example, once I had a toothache. I don't even know if it was a genuine toothache, because when you're in solitary confinement, you also pretend a lot to be sick. Yeah.
Okay.
So I went for this tooth extraction. Then when I came, they brought me back. Then I literally collected the blood that was coming into a cup, yeah. And then at night, I kind of spilled the blood and lay there. And I think they thought I was dead, because they are watching you from a camera. So big rush, and it was just a prank. And they rushed me to Johannesburg Hospital. So when I got to Johannesburg Hospital, I talked to the doctor. The doctor admitted me, and you got handcuffed to the bed, but it's better than sitting there. At least you can see some nurses there. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so, and I know that this was in around about June, July 86, because I remember when I was taken back, I saw, because there was a World Cup, Soccer World Cup, I think it was in Argentina. And I just remember seeing the billboard, some result, because you don't know what's happening in the world. Then you see, oh, England beat this one. And then you think, okay, you can go and tell the other guys in the cells. Yeah. So, yeah. Then, the 86 detention was probably the roughest, and thankfully the last one, yeah. All right, so then I leave Wits. I go to work for incidentally, I go to work for the woman who was my lawyer when I was in detention, Kathy Setchwell. She was a human rights lawyer, very fierce woman who was even feared by the security branch. She was quite... So...
How does that work, though? Like... getting your mind around these human rights lawyers who are white, but the system is oppressing black people.
Absolutely.
Then that makes them white Jesus.
Exactly. So there was that element. Yeah, some of these people actually. I mean, if you talk about that, Kathy Setchwell, the reason why I liked her so much is because she was the complete exception. So these other what you call white Jesus. Where,
our saviors.
Yeah, were not really, it turned out later that some of them were just not as holy as that. Yeah. But no, she was quite something. I mean, just to give you an example, in 1987 or 88, when I'm now an article clerk and I'm ironically, I'm visiting my own comrades that I was with in the cells. Well, so one of my jobs is to go there to pretend to be consulting with them and so on. But bring them nice goodies. So I was the only lawyer who was able to bring them food. For example, if I was going there, I'd go to Wits and buy some stuff, put it in my briefcase, and then say, I want to consult with so-and-so. But the irony was that the reason I could get away without being searched and so on is because the warders then knew me because I had been detained.
You're regular.
I'm like part of the furniture. Yeah. Anyway, so I was saying that Kathy Satchwell one time shocked all these other human rights lawyers because our clients in the cells went on a hunger strike. You know, quite a protracted one. People were hospitalized and so on. So she said one day, and we are the lawyers, we meet, what are we going to do? Let's write to this minister, whatever. Then one day she said, well, why don't we go on hunger strike as the lawyers? You should have seen the eyes popping out here. And anyway, eventually we had to go on hunger strike as the lawyers. And that's when those people were released here.
Oh my.
So, you know, lawyers who think only with a straight jacket are not mine. I want lawyers like her who could think out of the box here. Anyway, yeah, so then I'm the president of the, at the same time, remember I'm studying and I'm also doing articles. Because why? Because I ran out of money. I don't have a bursary. So I have to, if I hadn't worked and paid for my own university fees, that I would not be here. But she was kind enough to allow me to do that. But it was very difficult because I would have to do work, go to court, go to class, rush back to work. It was quite chaotic, yeah. But anyway, I made it. And by 1990, I've just now had my first degree. And I'm going to, and I've done my articles. And then, of course, they unbanned the ANC, which was quite something. So instead of starting with my legal career, I went to work for the ANC full time, just out of the passion. Because I'm also now involved with like proper big organizations. Yeah, I'm part of the UDF. I'm part of the. I was actually sent to London to go and report to O.R. Tambo, was then already in hospital with a stroke, about the release of the Sisulu group. So I'm already like kind of doing quite serious political work here. And I'm part of something that was called the National Reception Committee, which was to receive the political prisoners that were released. And was ironically chaired by one Cyril Ramaphosa. So we sit in these meetings and so that's the thing. People
These
don't know
cycles
these
of life,
connections.
yes.
Yeah. So for me, I mean that guy for me is like my chair of those days, and someone we met on a weekly basis, and
my gosh.
But anyway. That's another story. Even then, it was clear that there was something iffy about him. Yeah.
You didn't quite connect.
Yes. But anyway, then I go to work for the ANC full time. Yeah. And, the thing is, and maybe people who know about my politics now, I can say this without fear of contradiction, that I was always on the what you call the radical wing of the ANC, which is why for me to leave the ANC was quite easy, because we were always like the fringe, the lunatic fringe. Yeah, the mainstream ANC is a liberal organization. I mean, those people are just.
Why were you not in PAC then?
Yeah, I think I probably belong there, to be honest. But no, the PAC, unfortunately, and I was talking to the president of the PAC actually a week ago about this. The PAC...
But they say he's captured. Have you heard that?
I know. No, I told him that, yeah. And
Oh, you told him?
Yeah, I told him that they say
Yeah.
you are captured. And,
Yes.
and sometimes you... kind of,
ANC.
yeah. And in fact, well, I won't say it on air. There's a serious discussion that I'm having with him about that, because he really should be closer to us in the EFF than the ANC people. Even
the
in
policies
Parliament.
are closer.
Absolutely, yeah. But anyway, the PAC was very unfortunate. I think that more than 80% of us who were young. If we had a proper choice, we would have gone to the PAC. But the PAC, for example, the reason why people don't understand, the reason why the 1976 generation, which really had been influenced by Black consciousness, went and joined the ANC outside, is people say, but how? Because these people, just by virtue of who they were, and the answer is very simple. When our organizations were banned in 1960, the PAC had only been in existence for a year, for less than 2 years. It was formed in 1959. So it had not yet germinated in the country. The ANC had been in existence for almost 50 years. So it was a well-established organization. So it was able to establish itself even outside. So, for example, when the students came in hundreds of thousands, the PAC would not have had the capacity to even accommodate them. The only organization that would have been ready for such an emergency is the ANC. And therefore, that's really what happened. But in terms of politics, the ANC had no reason to be the dominant party, even right now. Anyway, that's our history. And that's why even now the PAC only has one MP and the ANC has 200 and whatever, because it never really took off. And then even when they were outside, then they had internal leadership fights. And, imagine if there are only 10 of you and then you still have factions. Yeah. So, but in terms of the policy, the politics, the reason why Sobukwe led the breakaway from the ANC was simply because the ANC, even at that stage, was seen as selling out and, pandering to white interests, which is what is still happening until today. So some of us were there by default because this was the movement. And so it was easy to leave them from that point of view. So that's from student politics graduating to serious national politics to the point of being trusted with some of the most important missions. Then in the legal space as well, I was involved with the original NADEL, which was the National Association of Democratic Lawyers. So effectively, I always put it like this: you can, that's what I am. I'm an activist and a serious political activist. So it doesn't matter if you could take me into a factory, I'll organize a union. You take me into the university, I'm going to organize student organization. You take me, it doesn't matter. If you took me to a panel beater shop, I'll organize the panel beaters union or whatever. Because I see myself, I've always dedicated myself to changing this society by any means necessary. If it meant having to participate in the underground and in the military and all that. So I've done it all. I've carried arms, literally. I've interacted with MK people and been part of those underground cells. Yeah, and so I've been prepared, and I still am prepared to die for the freedom of our people. So that's what defines me. It's not an effort. It's not something I have to put up. It's me. I mean, there's no day that I can say, oh, well, now I'm tired, or oh, it's fine now. Let them rule us. That will never happen. So everything else that I do is defined by my quest for freedom for our people and the return of the land, serious issues that without which I think that we can never be free. So that's where it all started. But of course, the even the choice of career, I think, people always say to me, but how are you able to juggle politics and law? And I say, but I don't see it's not even a juggle for me. I fight for justice. So I fight for justice in court, and I'm going to fight for justice in the street. It's the same thing. There's no, now I'm the lawyer, now I'm this. Yeah. It's so I think those humble beginnings help a lot, but also it grounds you because you cannot pretend to love people or love your people. Yeah. There'll be times when you forget the pretense. But if it's new, it's a new.
Yeah.
And people are not stupid. People can pick that up. They know who's genuine. They know who's kind of doing it, for the
who's
fashion.
Grandstanding.
Yeah, who's grandstanding, or there's a passing phase and so on. And I've been lucky that way. I mean, there's no amount of money that can ever compensate what I do than the feedback that I get from the people in the street. You get stopped by people who simply say, look, thank you for what you're doing for us. And you even think, how do these people even translate what you're doing to think that you're doing it for them? But as I say, our people don't have to go to school to know.
That's the thing.
To know who are their true leaders and to know who cares for them. And, you can't fake that,
There's some, because you're known for taking the more difficult cases.
Yes.
So which are some of the ones that have been most exciting and most gave you heart attacks? And
Look, that's another long story. We would need a program for that, because I've been
unpacking Dali Mpofu cases.
Starting with my own assassin case, No, look, remember when I got into law, it was the old days, literally. I mean, I've told you the story about the hunger strike and so on. But then we did cases, particularly in the law firm I worked for, of MK soldiers, captured MK soldiers. Very difficult cases. So you knew that what you must do in a particular case is just to try and get the best deal. Remember, these were the days of the death sentence. So that's why people don't understand the concept of winning or losing a case. Sometimes winning a case meant that somebody goes to jail for 20 years instead of hanging. It's something like that. Or having that person having a platform to speak and explain. I mean, we would have clients who say, no, the guy is caught with AK-47s and so on and is charged with murder and is going to hang. And he says, no, I don't recognize the apartheid court and I'm not going to participate. And you have to explain to that, look, if you do this, you're going to just die and so on. So we have to find a compromise where you don't compromise his political beliefs, but you try to save him. Most difficult thing to deal with. And we developed a way of, if the person is going to plead guilty, for example, say, yes, I had the guns, yes, I did this, yes, I put the bomb, but this is my explanation. Then you'd give the life history of that person and then give them a platform, and they even explain why they don't recognize the court, but at least they go there, and then some of the courts would be sympathetic. So you had to be creative like that, Now, fast forward to when now I was an advocate myself. Some of the most exciting cases, it's so funny because, again, people talk about the cases that are on television.
Yeah.
But for me, those are not the cases. Of course, some of them are exciting and big cases in terms of impact. But, for example, in the last year or so, my most exciting case was a case that I did for... There's a woman from a rural village in Kumbu in the Transkei who fell at a spa and broke her legs and so on. And now the spa obviously has got all these big lawyers and what. So what chances does she have of getting any compensation? So it was quite a big legal fight. And to cut a long story short, we got her about R1 million, which made, she used to sell old clothes and vegetables. Now she's been able to get a bakkie. She's now, you know what I mean? Yeah. So those are the most satisfying cases for me, more than all this glamorous stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of those kinds of examples where you make a difference. I mean, a few days ago, I was, a case that's exciting me right now as I'm speaking to you. I was doing an interview at Power FM, and somebody phoned to say that they are being evicted by some farmer because their father died who had been working there. I spoke to the guy yesterday. He was actually shocked because I said, give me your number. I think he thought I'm never going to call him. Yeah. So I called him yesterday and he gave me the story. And it's horrendous. So it's something that even now as I live here, I'm going to go and attend to. Now, if we can get somebody like that out of that situation, because they're helpless. He said, I mean, you hear in his voice, he says, look, my father died last month. I'm sitting here. The white man tells me, get off my land. And I say to him, where must I go? I've got cattle here. I've got goats and what have you. He says, I don't care. That's your problem. You must get out of here. And so our people still have to go through that in their own land, you know. So
I mean, even access to rivers and mountains.
You know,
so ridiculous.
It's crazy, yeah. So, but that's what we have to deal with. But as I say, I juxtapose these things. I know, unlike maybe some lawyers, that you cannot change the world by lawyering, because I'll go and help that particular person. You must change the world by changing the system itself. And that's why I'm able to put that connection between the lawyering and the social activism. Because the lawyering will help that individual, but we have to get back our land for all of us. And that you can't do by court cases. You have to do it by creating political change on a larger scale. So the two things work together. Yeah. But it doesn't mean you must wait for the Freedom Day, as it were. You still have to assist where you can in a small way, intervene, you know, at an individual level. But, you know, our people are, you know, black people suffer in a way that is unimaginable. You know, I don't know why we've gotten used to this. Take, for example, a small thing, a flood. When it's flooding, me in my nice house, I just hear the flood making noise, yeah. But so just normal rain, how it affects someone in a shack and how it affects you is completely different experiences. The shack fires, you know. Imagine you living in a congested shack village, and you know that if one burns, we're probably all going to burn anytime. What kind of existence is that? And we just relax. How can you sleep at night when black people in their millions are going through that kind of misery? In a country with minerals, with so it's I just don't understand how anybody can behave the way some of the so-called leaders are behaving, and think that apartheid can be reformed, you know, and we just have a little affirmative action here and there, when the whole thing needs to be completely overhauled. And if there are white people who are going to be annoyed by that and want to go away, well, let them go, you know. So we can't be nursing feelings of the very people who caused the problem. But if you do that, then they think you're a lunatic, or you're mad, or you're a radical, or you're whatever, you want to eat people or whatever. But it's not. It's really asking for equality. And for me, one of the things that drives me is the sense of justice and equality. Are things I believe in so much. So an injustice, whether it's done to Jacob Zuma or Busisiwe Mkhwebane or whoever it is, I take those injustices almost personally. And therefore, that's what drives me. I can work for the whole weekend without going home because I detest injustice of any form. on a small scale or on a big scale. And I don't care what, I always say the most dangerous black person is one who's constantly seeking white approval. So what they think of you is their business, and quite frankly, it's even sometimes good to just annoy them for the sake of annoying them. Because they never had to think twice. Imagine, if they had the same shame we have of, no, you don't want to upset the investors. Why were they not ashamed of evicting children and raping women and taking people off their land, forced removals and so on? They never said, oh, well, what is the world going to think? They did it. And but we must be all nice and give hugs and kisses. No.
The reason they're privileged so much now is because their forefathers...
Absolutely. Exactly. That's why when people talk about, in the days of apartheid, I said, there's no days of apartheid. Apartheid is here now, right now, as you correctly say. The only reason why white people have bigger houses, swimming pools, cars, and so on is not some coincidence. It's the accumulation which was done at the expense of people. It's land that was taken at gunpoint, not by negotiation, by sheer violence. And racism in my book is violence itself. Yeah. So you can't say no, and then they'll tell you no. You don't be violent. You can ask for your land nicely, but the land that was acquired violently. Yeah. So I have no time for that kind of nonsensical diplomacy or trying to be nice to the enemy or the oppressor or people who are actually messing you up on a daily basis. Because I think that we must wrestle back our land. And I'm a big believer that the first project of freedom is getting the land back. And as they say in the PAC, learn now and everything else will follow. So that's why I'm in the EFF, and that's why I left the ANC, because the EFF is the only organization currently that has the capacity to make it happen. As you have said, unfortunately, the PAC, I think, just doesn't have the organizational capacity. So the EFF presents probably the only opportunity in our lifetime of achieving true freedom. And that's why it made a conscious decision not to associate with white monopoly capital, even at its own expense. No, not to be funded by them, because if they
so
fund
it's not funded by any white capital.
Absolutely not, and consciously.
You are categorically stating this on the MOYA podcast.
Sure. I can tell you without fear of contradiction. If I had to mortgage my own house and put it as security for the EFF to even have a start, all of us in the top 6 had to sign a surety with a bank. And we didn't even know how we're going to pay that money. Fortunately, it worked out, yeah. So no, certainly. And we actually once turned back money which had been paid for by one of the banks, which said, look, we have got money for elections, we're giving it proportionately. And some of us took it, but after some discussion, the president of the EFF said we must take it back, and we did.
That's incredible.
And it's an important principle, because what happens is that it's so easy to be bought, and it's more difficult to be self-sufficient. But now, actually, we don't need these people. But when we needed them, we were able to say no. So I'm quite convinced that we have to look after the EFF. We have to make sure that it survives and
Where
grows.
is it getting its money then?
Okay, it gets its money from subscription, from membership subscriptions. We now have 1 million members or so, but it also gets from the IEC allocation, because there's an allocation now for parties. That's actually quite a good thing. And then Parliament. In Parliament, you get paid proportional according to your size. So the fact that we grew from 25 members to 44 also meant that we get double that allocation, for example. Yeah.
Okay.
So it helps a lot, and they even pay for the provincial representation. So the fact that we have representation in the provinces, in all the provinces, means that, so if you are smart, as the EFF leaders are, you are able to then use that money exponentially, as it were. So, for example, now one of the big things on the 10th year anniversary was to sell merchandise. So the quality, we used to have like T-shirts that you wash once and then it's gone. Now we've got very fancy merchandise which you can sell at higher prices and so on. And it's self-generating.
Oh, wow.
And then our MPs, our public representatives, they pay a levy to the parties, so a percentage of what they earn. So if you're in parliament and you earn, I don't know, 40,000 a month, 4,000 of that goes to the party. And because we've grown in the provinces and in the municipalities, I think we have now almost 1,000,000, 1,000 public representatives. So if each one of those pays 1,000, then it's 1,000,000. You know what I mean? So it's a very well orchestrated system, by the way. We call it a funding model. And that's how we designed it, the thing. So the funding model will tell you, you're going to get X percentage from the IEC, X percentage from parliament, X percentage from merchandise, X percentage from subscriptions, X percentage from membership. And then there are people whose job it is to make sure that is managed, like any other organization. I mean, I used to run the SABC. We had a funding model. We know this much will come from government. This much will come
Actually,
from...
this podcast also has a funding model.
Absolutely, This much will come from TV licenses. This much will come from that. And the rest is just managing it and making sure that... and also, the bank, for example, now, let's assume if there was some unexpected EFF event that has to happen and we don't have the money, we can now go to the bank and say, we need 10 million rand, because they know that in 3 months' time, the IEC is going to give it to us and we'll pay them, because they keep all our books. So we can now say, actually, we need 50 million rand now to print T-shirts, because they know that, okay, you might not have it now, but in 6 months' time, you will have it. So it's
okay.
And also, if you are able to manage your finances properly, you also get the credibility of the bank and people like that, So it's the EFF is something that we should preserve, because, again, it's not just for South Africa. It's the only organization, and it's actually amazing that this happened, that in the entire history of our existence, nobody has ever thought of having an organization that must exist in South Africa, in Namibia, in Angola, in Uganda, in what? No one. Not the ANC, not the PAC, not...
And it's growing across the continent, I've seen.
And it's the first time that has been done. And we now have 2 MPs on Namibia. We have... Well, one of our people will be contesting, I think, in Liberia for the presidency. We don't think he's going to win.
Yeah,
but the mere fact,
that's quite an achievement.
Exactly. Just for the pockets of Africa, knowing that there's an organization that is theirs. So, I can go on and on.
I know, and I will make EFF pay for this episode if you are not careful.
It's election time. So really the duty of every black person is to vote for the EFF.
So what I want to know, because we can't have you all the way here and not unpack some of the rumors we've heard about you.
Yes.
So, I mean, you don't have to go into detail, but can you tell us some extraordinary moments that you had with Mama Winnie, please?
Okay. Yeah, no, I know that question always comes. Yeah.
Oh, does it always come?
Yeah, no, but that's...
And do you always confirm or deny the rumor?
No, I deny the rumor because it is a rumor.
Okay.
But the one thing that I never deny is that she and I had a special relationship.
Yes.
Which really was I think she's one of those leaders that I could vouch for, that she was completely dedicated to the cause. And it so happens that we discovered this, by the way, after a year or two of working together there, that actually we were actually born on the same day, 26th of September. So that's probably why we could click at that level. But she was quite, someone who had such a deep-seated love for her people, to an extent that nobody can even imagine. I mean, that whole tough woman and so on would literally cry tears just at watching some misery of a black person or a child or whatever. Yeah. So I can say that, okay, I got to work, when I was an activist, there was a comrade of mine who passed on called Aubrey Mukwena, also a soldier of note. And just by coincidence, he had worked with her. So we used to go to Brandfort when she was banished there, yeah. So I've literally, if I had to write her story, it would be quite amazing, because I was there when she took a decision in Brandfort and said, look, I'm going back to Soweto. And we thought, what are you talking about? You're banished. She said, no, I'm going next week on a Wednesday or whatever. Please come and collect me from here. And that was it. She just drove, got there, got into the car and said, I'm going home. This is it. No one ever thinks about that. No one ever unbanned Winnie Mandela from Brandfort. She just said, I'm going now. And we were stopped by, there's that famous video of where there's a white policewoman and she says, don't touch me.
Yes,
that was the day, yeah. We were coming, yeah, and they stopped the car and she said, I'm going there. And she went there. And that was it. She was, I'm telling you about how you could not even mention the words ANC. But she was able, she would go to a mass funeral, stand there, wear her ANC things and say, Viva ANC, and go home. If any one of us did that, we'd have to leave the country because that's how brave she was. So, and people like her, Peter Mukaba, Chris Hani, the so-called radicals, those were my people in the ANC. And so, when I say I've carried arms, she was there carrying arms literally, where we were interacting with some of the underground people, bearing limpet mines and all sorts of things, yeah. So I can say that I don't think I had a comrade that I knew that if she's sitting here at the back holding a gun, then we're safe, yeah. So, the personal stuff, gets all exaggerated, and I think it was part of the
propaganda.
Yeah. And but she was like me that way as well, because I think the idea was then after that we were supposed to not even look at each other and make sure, but both her and I probably did the exact opposite. If anything, we probably appeared more in public and did what we had to do because she was so headstrong, yeah. But no, that's somebody I had a lot of time for. And if, when she passed on, it was really something which was very, very, very personal. And the country will never be the same without her, yeah. And... I also tell the story that when I represented Julius and the other youth leaders when they were expelled from the ANC in that disciplinary hearing. So what you might remember, there's a day when Cyril Ramaphosa was the chair of the disciplinary committee appeal, then pronounced that no, they've been expelled. Now, when we went from Lutuli House, we got out, we were all in a daze. Yeah. We didn't know what to do. Instinctively, we just drove to her house in Soweto just to get a moment where, the media was outside and, and that's how much she meant. Yeah. And that was the most brilliant thing, because from that, when we came out, we were able to address the media and so on. We had our moments inside there, yeah.
Sidibeng.
Yeah. So she was, yeah. And again, I mean, even before she left, she took a podium. I remember she did this in Orange Farm. And when Viva EFF, I mean, if any ANC person would do that, I was telling the young leaders, she used to do that for the ANC. Now, if any ANC leader went to say Viva EFF, they would be expelled. But who's going to expel her? You know?
I know.
Yeah, no, a wonderful human being, very special. And I think that if she had been given the leadership of the country as she should have been, if she was not a woman, who would have been very far by now. Yeah. But of course, the big men conspired to make sure that she didn't get that position. You know, in 1997 at the ANC conference in Mafikeng, she was put up for the deputy presidency of the ANC. And you should have seen the shenanigans that were done to make sure that doesn't happen. The same thing had been done for when Chris Hani would have been the deputy president. And if one of those two had actually ascended to be deputy president and eventually president of the country, we would be far, rather than having the current bunch of sellouts that we have.
Advocate Mpofu, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy and important life to come and share your spirit and your story.
But are you registered to vote? You must make sure you're registered and you vote EFF.
Always. I'm going to mute you every time. Otherwise, I'm sending an invoice to your people. Because you know I'm always fighting with them. This is not the place for you to be doing this.
That's exactly why I'm doing it. No, thank you.
Mute.
You'll mute me like Janji.
I will mute you.
Look, no, thank you very much, Ntsiki. On a serious note, I think this is I like what you are doing here. And as you can imagine, I've done many interviews, but your format is the best because you allow, I think, someone to go wherever they want to go with the conversation. So keep it up, and hopefully these voices, as having been in the communication space as CEO of the SABC, I understand the importance of media, public media at this level. Yeah, you might think that you are just doing this, but believe me, the voice, any voice, you're not going to be as big as 405 and all those things. But to give people who would otherwise not have the voices in the mainstream is something that you must keep on doing. So, right on, sister.
Thank you. Viva.
Thank you. Viva Ntsiki.
Viva. Umoya Uright, Umoya Ulight. Guys, as you know, you guys are funding this project. Our bank account is looking a little bit bleak. We need more episodes, so please do the things. You know, the bank details are in the description box. It's been such a pleasure and privilege to be with you. And thank you once again for joining. Please like, share, and subscribe, and let's grow the community. Umoya O.
Who are you when all you were has been diluted by lies and white lines cancelling out all that which has been written of your history? Why do you look at yourself as a mystery? Doesn't the sun shine because you open your eyes? Doesn't the moon stay situated within the same stars your DNA sparkles off? Your spirit knows that surely corner into it off. Buza umoya so you may return to being well off. Because spiritually you are rich, yet your ancestors cry because you are out of reach. But yours is to command all elements while God takes inspiration from the very mirror she looked at to become. Remember who you are and never finish just when they think that with you they are done.